Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our webcast webinar. My name is Jim Patterson with EPM Live, and I'll be presenting to you today. Our topic today is SaaS PPM. How do you know when it's right for you? Just a little bit of housekeeping information. Those of you that are online, you will be muted during the course of the webinar. However, there is a chat panel in your GoToMeeting window if you want to ask questions that you can submit questions, and we have folks on board that can actually answer those questions for you, or you can submit them to us after the webinar, and happy to deal with that on a one-on-one basis if you like. So today's topics on the SaaS PPM that we're going to cover is SaaS PPM right for you? Then we'll talk about how you know that you're ready for SaaS, or the things that you should consider for that. We'll talk about the overall benefits of going into a SaaS PPM solution. And then we'll talk about the right PPM solution for you, and talk about some specific solutions that we offer that may fit the bill based upon what you're looking to accomplish. So starting from the beginning, what is SaaS? Well, SaaS is an acronym that stands for Software as a Service. As opposed to the traditional model where we buy software from a vendor and then install it on our own computers or our own servers, SaaS is software that's actually owned, delivered, and managed remotely by a third-party provider. They sell it to you as a service. Typically, it's a one-to-many, where one vendor with one solution goes to many customers and many users out there, and they generally pay for it as they go. Usually on a subscription basis, like a per-month fee or an annual fee. Or some vendors have a pay-per-use basis for different types of things. But in the PPM world, it's mostly on a subscription base where you pay a monthly fee or an annual fee or a quarterly fee based upon your level of usage. So how do we know that SaaS PPM is right for you? Well, first of all, as an organization, you have to determine to you what the value of SaaS might be to your company. So SaaS has emerged as a very popular alternative to traditional IT models, where we install software on our infrastructure and maintain it internally. SaaS enables companies to fund software deployments from an operating budget. Most of the time when you buy enterprise solutions or software in a company, it has to go through a capital budgeting process, and it's come from capital dollars within an organization. Since SaaS is procured as a service, most organizations categorize that color of money a little bit different. And from an operating budget, companies can often subscribe to a service with a monthly fee without having to go through the capital budgeting process if they have that funding in their operating budget. So it makes it a little bit easier for business units or departments on the business side of the house to actually get in and buy these types of solutions. Also, SaaS helps companies with limited IT resources. So smaller companies, mid-sized companies that don't have full-blown or very broad, deep IT organizations have the ability to deploy software with very high-end capabilities that if they bought it, installed it, and maintained it, they might not have the ability or the budget to be able to afford such capabilities. So SaaS really allows companies to step up the game as far as the capabilities that they want in a PPM solution. Also, one of the big advantages of SaaS is that it helps companies deploy functionality quicker. Because it is typically a solution that is easy to spin up for an organization, most organizations can get a PPM solution up for you in a matter of the same day or days as opposed to weeks and months that a typical in-house deployment might make. So getting the benefits of the solution sooner is definitely one of the reasons that this has become a very popular model. So there's some things to consider if you're evaluating whether or not you're ready to make the leap into the SaaS approach to delivering software to your users in your organization. First thing you obviously want to do is want to make sure that the required application has the PPM functionality fully available to you via SaaS. So you want to make sure that the capabilities in the SaaS solution meet the needs of everything that you want to accomplish from a project and portfolio management basis. Some SaaS solutions are stripped down, locked down, or maybe just have limited functionality. Others are more broad in their capabilities. So be sure that the solution that you're subscribing to can do the things that you want to do now and in the near future. Also, Because it is a third party and you're going external outside of your company to get this service provided to you, you must determine are there any company policies or industry regulations that prevent data from being held physically outside the company. Some industries have very sensitive data that they might not be comfortable from a policy perspective on actually housing that data outside of their own firewalls. So that's something to consider as whether or not you're even a candidate. Also, is a highly customized application required? Typically, SaaS solutions provide you the ability to do things in kind of an out-of-the-box fashion and make some nominal modifications or customizations to your software. And the degree to which you want to do that varies from vendor to vendor. So, but if it's something that is highly customized, that is unique to you, that you might not even think about off-the-shelf software at all, you might want to reconsider the SaaS model. But if not, you could be a candidate for more of a SaaS model. Is the required integration of the applications to other applications available from the SaaS solution. So you want to determine, do you have to have integration from your PPM solution to other solutions in your organization, and does the SaaS offering have the capabilities, the tool sets, and the facilities to promote and to enable that integration? Also, will the application create competitive parity for us? That's an interesting question, and the fact that especially smaller organizations that typically couldn't afford certain kinds of enterprise solutions that some of maybe their bigger competitors have. You know, is this something that will raise the bar for you, enable you to compete on a more head-to-head basis with bigger competitors? Is developing and managing this application a core competency? One of the key reasons why people outsource, or one criteria a lot of companies use to outsource is that if it is not a core competency of their organization or part of their core mission, a lot of organizations have said we're going to outsource or go to third parties to provide such software. That way focusing their internal IT on the things that are their core competencies. So is this something that is a core competency that you want to keep in-house, or is it something that you should outsource from an efficiency and effectiveness and cost perspective? Also, you want to know, do you have the IT skills available to develop and manage this application? Do you have the people in-house that can actually maintain not only the infrastructure, but also the software itself and the application, and do the configuration changes and all the things that need to be done over the course of a life cycle of an application? If you do not, then SaaS could definitely be a viable option for you. Do you even have the IT infrastructure available to help manage this application? That could mean from do you have a server farm that could install an enterprise PPM solution? Do you have the other capabilities that might be needed, or does your IT infrastructure up to the current prerequisite levels of things like operating system and database level and other things that certain of the state-of-the-art solutions might require? If you do not have the infrastructure, or your infrastructure is not up to a certain level of modernization, you can get those capabilities from SaaS because the SaaS provider provides all those core prerequisites as part of their offering. Another thing to consider is, do we have the financial resources available to develop and manage this application? Where this becomes important is the initial cost of entry into a solution is generally much lower with a SaaS-based solution. Instead of having high upfront capital costs for procuring software and hardware and all those things before you can even get started, generally you can get into these SaaS solutions with little or no upfront fee and then just pay as you go on a monthly basis. So the financial arrangements and the cash flow considerations of that are something that you might want to consider in your evaluation. Also, as I mentioned before, do you want to pay for this capability or this software from an operating expenditures budget as opposed to going through the capital budgeting process within the organization and the rigor that goes with that? Also, do you have an urgent need for this application? Meaning, do you have to get it up quickly? Is it something that, you know, looking at all things being equal, would it take us X amount of time or several weeks or months to get up a solution in-house, where a SaaS vendor very often can get you up very quickly, sometimes same day or same week, with the solution in order to make those things happen. And the other thing is, what kind of is your view as far as risk tolerance on these types of things? The reason we ask that is, the SaaS model and the online models out there tend to be very low risk, meaning if you don't have very much capital budget commitment up front, if you do pay as you go, if you're only buying what you need at that point, then, for example, if things change and you need to move on to a different solution, or you need to move on altogether, for example, you can get out without having all of that upfront sunk cost that you would have had in the more capital-intensive license solution traditional model that we have involved. The other piece of this is you can actually work your way incrementally into the solution. For example, very easily to evaluate and go through a proof of concept or pilot or pre-production of the solution online with very few users and very low cost. And then only when you've solidified the solution and reached a confidence level that this is the right solution for you, could you then step up and then bring on the enterprise user base after you've done your due diligence and actually been hands-on with the solution for a while. So things that affect and bring down the risk level of an enterprise deployment of a PPM solution. Other things, how well is your IT department integrated with your business units? If it's very well integrated and you have a very good relationship with IT, you might consider going in-house. But if it's hard to get things in, if it's hard to get on the docket, if it's hard to get things up and running for you because of IT bandwidth or priorities, going with a SaaS solution might be a more conducive solution to getting us up with minimal IT involvement and requirement and commitment. Can this application be standalone? Meaning, could you stand it up today, talk to a third-party vendor, have them spin up a solution for you, and not have to worry about any type of integration pieces? If that's the case, then very easily you get into the SaaS solution very, very quickly. Do you have a history of using externally based applications? The reason that's a consideration is organizations that have made the mental leap to accepting online or third-party or SaaS type of solutions as part of their application mix and the way that they receive software, then the barrier of entry into SaaS is lower because it's been proven, it's been accepted, and culturally it's something that is bought into within the organization. If not, if it's the first time somebody's gone outside for something, it may be a little bit difficult, a little additional justification. It may take some more time to get the things approved that you need internally to get those things done. Where are you at from a confidence perspective about the technology in your company? Do you feel that your technology is state of the art? Can you is it providing the value you seek? Or by buying the software as a service model, can you get access to more modern technology and more up-to-date and advanced capabilities than maybe you can get in-house? The other thing to consider is, are you comfortable working in partnerships with an IT vendor? So, for example, instead of dealing with your own internal IT, are you comfortable with working with your PPM vendor and the vendor who would be managing the data center, in that case, for your solution, making sure that your infrastructure is stable and up and running and your application is available to you at all times? Are you comfortable working in that third-party partnership realm? That's a consideration to ask yourself when you're moving into these SaaS arrangements. Are you confident that the SaaS-based applications have the appropriate levels of security and availability? Reputable vendors are dealing with and serving up these applications from real state-of-the-art industrial data centers with all the backup and redundancy on power, gas and cooling and disaster recovery and all those types of things, and state-of-the-art access and security for the things that have to go on for people to get in and out of the building, to get in and out of the servers. So the idea is that how do you feel about having things sitting outside of your firewalls in your own organization? You need to be confident that the vendor that you're choosing has the security levels that'll make you be able to sleep at night. Also, will participants from outside organizations be accessing the applications? Oftentimes, in the subscription model, you can give an account to somebody with a third-party SaaS vendor, where if you had this application or solution in-house, the decisions are there made. How do we get them in there? Do we give them VPN access? Do we put them in our Active Directory to give them access? Or is that problematic? Having it outside in a third-party vendor and giving them an account to that application may be easier and more secure and more comforting to some organizations, making the case for an online SaaS model. Is there also the possibility that you might not require the application permanently? As I mentioned before, maybe there's a temporary need. Maybe there's an application you need for a joint venture. You're getting together with 2 or 3 different entities for a large program or product or series of projects that you're working on. And perhaps when that's all said and done, you may not need the solution for that purpose any longer. You can spin up a SaaS solution for a lot of vendors for that kind of purpose, for a temporary purpose, and then be able to exit quite nicely at the end of it without having committed a lot of capital dollars on hardware, infrastructure, and software. So then the question begs, are you as an organization ready for SaaS? Is SaaS right for you? And if the answer is yes, well then what about you from an organizational readiness perspective? Are you really ready to take this on and pursue and operate within this model? Some things, some readiness factors to consider. Have you developed the business process flows to be automated with the SaaS solution? You may have in general the capabilities that you're looking for, but do you know what processes that you're going to have? And from a PPM perspective, that could be from a variety of upfront, from the very intake and idea process, all the way through portfolio selection, all the way through project execution, all the general collaboration and information sharing that has to go on, the reporting process, etc. So if those things haven't been defined, you may not be ready to take on any solution yet until you really understand what that solution is. And then ultimately, can the process be executed within the solution you've selected? And a lot of PPM solutions today have a lot of ability to manage process through workflow and other types of mechanisms. Also, is integration required? And if so, have you identified the data sources necessary to support the application? Or is it going to be standalone? So, for example, at first, a lot of folks may go standalone with the idea that integration is something down the road that would be a nice to have. For other organizations, the integration is a day one requirement. So really have to figure that out and figure out what the sources are and systems of record for data that we're going to leverage within this PPM SaaS solution. But also be careful not to over-engineer the integration requirements. Sometimes folks will kind of go beyond what's needed from either batch periodic interfaces to things that are more real-time, and there's cost and time and complexity involved in those things. So the thing is to engineer it for the capability and for the level that you need, and not really beyond. Have you created security specifications? So as you're evaluating SaaS provided for your PPM solution, you probably should have an idea of a minimum acceptable level of security, and then you can actually evaluate whether or not the vendor actually is providing those types of standards for you. And also, at that line, there may be people that meet your minimum level of acceptance of security and at a reasonable cost. You can always have more security, but usually additional security can be more costly. So the idea is that is the security that you would pay additional fee for, is it worth the fee depending on the nature of the security item that you're looking at. Also, even though we are providing as a SaaS PPM vendor the solution, it is coming to you over the internet. So through an internet connection is how you access the solution. But that being said, even though you don't need to have the infrastructure internally to house the application, getting the application and the data from it to and from your users is based upon internet bandwidth. So the idea here is making sure that you've assessed your internal network and internet bandwidth to ensure the readiness for that, so that any additional traffic it might bring in or depending on how much data and such is, will your current infrastructure support the need? Very easy to test with most SaaS vendors on how the response times are from their servers to your users. And some of the factors to consider are, how many users will you have and where will they be connecting from? Global customers may have a variety of locations where bandwidth and internet speed is variable in figuring out where maybe some bottlenecks or lower performing areas might be. How often are people connecting? How many will be on at any one given time? How long are people staying connected? How much data will be transferred? Or things just to kind of think about when you're seeing whether or not your own internal network and access to the internet will support the SaaS solution. Have you determined the uptime requirements? I'd say most reputable vendors are in that 99-point-something% uptime guarantee. The idea is just making sure that the vendor has uptime commitments to make sure that you have the solution available to you when you need it at the places that you do need it. Have you determined the staging and testing process for the software service update cycle? Different vendors are different on this. It's important to develop these requirements because, for example, some vendors, and we're one of them, that support multiple versions or generations of the product, meaning that in a lot of cases the customer can determine when they upgrade to different levels or different versions of the software being delivered in a SaaS model. Others are only a single version of their software, and when the vendor decides to upgrade, they implement the upgrade and force it on all the users. And you need to probably know which philosophy or which method the vendor you're choosing is going to do. And some do a hybrid of both, depending on the nature of whether or not it's a shared multi-tenant environment or basically whether maybe people have some own dedicated servers and things like that in that regard. So just be sure that you're aware of that process. Most of the upgrading that's done by SaaS vendors is more incrementally upgrading than major upgrades all the time, so that you kind of get it kind of drips to you as a user, the new functionality and things like that. But also upgrades can also affect things like integrations that you have with other solutions and other things like that. So it's something to plan and be ready for. Also, end users. Probably no different, even though it's a SaaS model and you've outsourced this. Supporting your users internally is probably something you need to think about and accommodate. So as users have problems or issues with the solution, for example, it's critical that they have a mechanism for getting that reported, that communicate the resolution and common things that might happen with other users. And the key is to have your own internal process as well as the vendor's support process to be able to best meet the needs of your users out there. Also on the change request process, even though SaaS vendors manage the infrastructure and the servers and provide the connections and those types of things, typically the customer does some of the application administration themselves. So for example, if you want to add new fields, maybe put in a new workflow or things that are in managing the application, not so much the foundation of the application, you want to make sure that you still have a change request process so that there is some rhyme and reason and some manageability to changes that are made to the solution for the user base out there. Because if there's no process out there to validate and distribute and implement changes, then the SaaS solution can become a little bit unwieldy and sometimes inconsistent if you don't have a good theme and a good approach to this. Just something to consider. By no means is that all exhaustive of things to consider, but just some things and foods for thought if you haven't been thinking in those directions. So what are the overall benefits of SaaS? Why would we even think of pursuing this in the first place? Well, there's a slew of them that I'm going to raise to you today. First of all, lower initial costs, like we said. For a lot of organizations, getting big-time enterprise software capabilities with little or no upfront cost and then paying as you go with a monthly or annual fee is something that's attractive. It makes large capabilities and high-end capabilities available to a wider audience, both small and mid-sized companies alike. It's not just for the large mega corporations any longer. Also, you only pay for what you use. As you bring users on, you may start with 50 users. then go up to 100 users. But the idea is you're not buying software for everyone in case they use it. What you're doing is you're paying for the users that you need and nothing more. Also, because it is fast to implement, it is also less expensive to implement. So meaning, since a lot of these SaaS solutions are at least substantially pre-configured in a lot of ways, that you get a base capability of a solution. It's not a blank canvas. And then you can tailor and make some modifications or configuration modifications to those things as you go. But the idea is that traditionally in the past, PPM solutions in-house have been months and weeks and a lot of man-months and man-years of effort to get up and running in a deployment roadmap. Here it's much faster, much quicker, and also you get the benefits of the solution much quicker. So the idea is that lower upfront cost and quicker time to your benefit, meaning that your expenditures are more in line with the benefits that you're receiving from a time perspective. We talked about why a SaaS approach can be lower risk for you, so I won't rehash that. Also reduced operational management requirements. Since there's no IT being managed on your end for the solution, the operational management pieces of those and the burden falls to the vendor, which means you take that off of your plate and put it onto the hands of the vendor. You're paying for that as part of the service. Lower upgrade costs. Oftentimes upgrades with an in-house solution is a significant project in and of itself that requires timing, prep, execution, testing, and all those types of things. If the vendor is handling those things for you predominantly, then the cost to you is included and bundled in your service for the most part. Also lower switching costs, something to consider. When you buy in-house software to install on your own servers, once you commit that large capital cost up front, there is a barrier of that sunk cost to making a switch, where the vendor might even have you a little bit beholden because of the fact that you've made that investment, and it's too painful to make a switch because you probably bought the software, spent a lot of implementation dollars and effort in that, and the entrenchment, and then trying to retract that solution out of your server farm and then move to another solution can be very costly. Getting out of a SaaS solution is really it's really about as much as turning off the solution and perhaps getting your database some of your information so that you can move on to other things if it's not a good fit or for some reason your situation's changed. Also, SaaS benefits the organization by getting higher user adoption rates in general. Because there's anytime access, typically only a browser and internet access is required, so you can access it from a variety of different computers and other types of devices. So the idea is that by making it that flexible and that easy to get to, user adoption tends to be higher, and the training cost of getting people trained to use the solution is generally less. Also, SaaS generally offers the right functionality, where they give you the functionality that you want, you configure to you want, and most people use a certain percentage of any piece of software, and giving people access or functionality they don't need is not productive or necessary. So the idea is that generally the SaaS solution is fit to the core things that you want to do. We talked about operating expense versus capital budget, so I won't rehash that. SaaS can also benefit resource-constrained companies that don't have the resource or the skill types internally to maintain the application or the technologies that are required to do your on-premise application. We take that totally out of the mix in the SaaS model because that's all handled on the vendor side. We talked about infrastructure. Because the vendor is delivering this delivering and providing the infrastructure for the solution, maintaining databases and application servers and hardware and other components and software on desktops and things like that is no longer needed. Also in a SaaS model, even though the administration of the infrastructure is handled by the vendor, most SaaS tools provide application configuration tools to the business user. So if you're trying to do this and not burden IT with the administration of this, configuration of the application, modifications, management of users, and those types of things can be handled by the business user without a lot of technical knowledge for the most part. So this eliminates the need of getting in the queue for IT and putting in requests and waiting for the resources to be available, because you can handle a lot of this stuff yourself in more of a self-serve fashion. So just some benefits of going with the SaaS approach. So from a SaaS PPM solution, the other factor is determining what's the right solution for you. And you'll do your market research out there, but we can talk about some of the things that we're doing. And a lot of the factors tie back to the webinar that I gave last week on project management maturity and how do you increase your project management maturity within your organization. And the reality is not everybody's at the same level. And even within the same organization, not everybody's at the same level. So the thing is getting you the right SaaS solution with the capabilities you need, but without overreaching to something that's not sustainable for you in the organization. We talked last week about, depending on whether you're level 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 from a maturity perspective or somewhere in between, you probably should do a deployment and a selection of software that is more closely aligned with where you're at today, but with the eye on improving and stretching the organization into growth and higher maturity. In this graph here, if you're really a 2 and you deploy a solution that really, and a process for that solution that really demands level 4 maturity, that's a huge risk for you. There's a gap there that needs to be filled from a sustainability and a success perspective that may not be realized because you overreached. So the key is to figure out where you are and do something that's commensurate with that. EPM Live as a company, to that end, we provide different tiers of our solution. And you can step up from one to the other relatively seamlessly. Project Engine, our lightest weight, web-based project collaboration tool, is offered only in a SaaS model. It's pre-configured. It provides a lot of capabilities right out of the box. You can spin it up day one. It's inexpensive. But you can do modifications and some tailoring and configuration to make it unique to you as a customer. So, lightweight project collaboration, not really high maturity required to really sustain it. The key is that there's an entry point for that type of thing. Our Work Engine solution, and here's where we start dividing up, where we make Work Engine available in a SaaS model, but we also make it available in a license model for those people that prefer it the other way around. So it's not a all or nothing proposition. We have a lot of folks, once they step into that realm, that start online with the idea to take the low-risk approach with the full intention of moving it in-house when things get traction and they get a good critical mass of users out there. So we can actually go from one to the other very nicely. But Work Engine kind of steps up to more enterprise project execution and work management capabilities. From a PPM perspective, it adds functionality like portfolio visibility and things like that, and resource management across an entire portfolio of work. And so primarily focused on the execution pieces and for folks that are emerging in their portfolio management capabilities. Then the Portfolio Engine capabilities, which you can step up, which includes all the functions of Work Engine, but also adds more advanced strategic top-down portfolio planning and management, like demand management, portfolio analysis, cost planning and budgeting, resource capacity planning, and those types of things are all available layered onto the Work Engine execution pieces so that you can actually have those capabilities available to you as well. And once again, that solution is available in a SaaS model. It's also available in a licensed model, so you can take the same approaches that you take with Work Engine. So feel free to explore us. Project Engine, which is a simple online project management tool in a SaaS model, okay, that does basic project collaboration and sharing schedules and other collaborative pieces around projects. Work Engine really is that enterprise project management tool that provides primarily execution but good portfolio visibility, and also can do some basic intake and things like that of project requests. And then Portfolio Engine really steps up as the Cadillac with all the full EPM execution pieces and all the PPM portfolio management, high-end capability for strategic planning and alignment and optimization. If you go to check us out at epmlive.com, you'll see on our homepage all three of the solutions. You can actually get a free trial or a free sign-up on Project Engine or Work Engine or Portfolio Engine. You can learn more about the solution and get right into it. So feel free to go check that out. Also, today, for being part of our webinar, we're offering, if you contact us at info@epmlive.com and request, we are offering a SaaS readiness survey that you can actually go in and fill out and kind of see whether or not SaaS is maybe a good thing for you to consider at this point in time, or it's something that maybe you should stay away from at this point in time. The idea is understanding a lot of the factors and things to consider that we talked about, and then some. You can kind of score yourself and see where you sit from a SaaS perspective, and based upon people who are in this industry, see if you're a good candidate to tackle this. So it provides a lot of advantages for an organization, but for some organizations it's not the right fit, or at least not yet anyway. So please take a look, and with that, I would like to thank you for joining us this morning, and please join us and look at our website at epmlive.com. Check under events for our future webinar schedule. Thank you and have a great day.